Hey friends, this is Varun from the Red Music Box and welcome back to another video episode. Now we are here to discuss an interesting topic today which is often debated and discussed on many online forums. But before we dive into it, let me request you to hit the subscribe button below and ding the bell so you're notified every time there's a new content available on my channel. Now as you can see, this is just the second video that's going up, so it's a fairly brand new channel. So your subscription, your thumbs up and your comments is going to encourage me a long way to make more such content to help musicians like you. Today's topic is the best DAW ever. Wait, is that true? I thought that's a myth. Now what on earth is a DAW? It stands for Digital Audio Workstation. In simple words, it's a piece of software used by all musicians and engineers to record, edit, mix and master their music to professional standards. Ever since the good old analog days of recording on a tape machine kind of became obsolete, DAWs have been the mainstay at every recording studios. Now, if you're a newbie and you're looking for a software to start producing or recording your music, then the first question I have for you is, what exactly do you want to do with it? In fact, it's the first piece of equipment you should be getting if you're considering recording your music. There are plenty of DAWs out there in the market, starting with Logic Pro X, Pro Tools, Ableton Live, Cubase, PreSonus Studio One, Reason, Reaper. Wow, the list just goes on. And Universal Audio have been working on their own proprietary Luna recording system. I'm so thrilled and excited to try it out because they claim it's not just a DAW, but it's a recording system, which kind of marries the new digital way of working along with the old analog workflow. So let's see what that's going to be like. Now, all DAWs can do very similar things like recording, editing, mixing, and mastering your music. However, musicians somehow prefer certain DAWs over another, mainly because of the features and the workflow and sometimes even the user interface. So let's try and take a look at some of these things and see which one suits you best. First things first, I don't believe there is a best DAW ever. In fact, it all boils down to your preferences and your workflow. Softwares can be really expensive. If you look at, for example, the Pro Tools HD system, it just shoots through the roof because it comes along with a hardware to complement and make it a powerhouse of a system. Now, stuff like Logic Pro X can be a lot more affordable and can be easily downloaded off the App Store. It's also not as intense on your system resources and makes it a perfect partner for musicians like me. I use Logic Pro X as my main DAW in the studio alongside Pro Tools and Ableton Live for certain specific features that I believe it does best. Hang on, can you use multiple DAWs? I thought that would involve a lot of key commands and hotkeys and stuff like that to learn, and that means your editing and your overall workflow is going to slow down like crazy. But it's totally cool. Trust me, many people out there use multiple DAWs to incorporate in their workflow and choose the best features that each one has to offer. So let's go. Let's start with Logic Pro X. Now this is a piece of software I'm most comfortable with because I mostly know the key commands and I also know where the settings and preferences are, so it helps me get through even some of the most challenging sessions. I did my diploma in music production from Point Blank School of Music and I chose Logic as my platform. Now there is a reason I chose Logic and not Ableton Live because primarily I'm a live musician, I'm a guitar player and I needed a piece of software that helps me in my songwriting stages all the way to creating good sounding mixes and masters. So Logic Pro X comes along with a lot of samples, virtual instruments and loops which helps musicians across all genres of music. So it was a perfect tool for people like me. If you're a songwriter or a composer, Logic Pro is going to be an amazing tool because it comes with many samples and many virtual instruments which helps you get performances which sound like live acoustic instruments. There are virtual guitar and bass amps, pedal boards and great sounding drum kits within Logic Pro X. In fact, their exclusive drummer track is the single biggest reason why I would recommend Logic Pro to any composer. A drummer track is essentially a MIDI track where Apple somehow figured out to take live performances of a drummer from a studio, convert them into a MIDI track and allow us to dictate and control their performances using a cool and a simple user interface. You can control how simple and complex the drum parts are and how loud and soft it is played. Along with it, you can also control the fills and swing and also control the complexities of individual elements of a drum kit. And if that wasn't enough already, you can even record a live performance of a guitar or a piano take and ask the drummer track to follow that, creating a groove which complements and locks perfectly with it. Let's take a look at some of these features in action. Additionally, you can also convert these drum regions into a MIDI region. So you just hit right click and go to convert to MIDI region. And that lets you also go ahead and change things a little more. So if I want to move the kick behind to lock with my piano, the same thing here. In this case, I'm just going to duplicate it. So that gives you an idea of what a drummer track is capable of. Quite powerful and really useful in your songwriting stages especially. I can't tell you how many sessions and projects I got through using Logic's drummer track. In fact, the final performance in the song is Logic's drummer. It sounds fabulous and it can easily trick our ears. Especially once you start adding all the other elements into your session, you can barely make out if it was a live drummer or a virtual instrument. Apart from that, the default plugins like the EQ and compression, the reverbs, delays and modulation sound phenomenal. You can achieve some great sounding mixes within Logic Pro X completely using the default stuff that it comes with. Point blank made us uninstall all the third-party softwares on the first day of our class. They asked us to focus mainly on Logic's default plugins because the user interface is simple and easy to understand. It lets you focus on your music making skills more than finding the right knobs. Logic comes with a bunch of samples and virtual instruments which spans across many different styles of music, starting from pop, hip-hop, jazz, blues, country, rock, and even sometimes you can get by writing classical pieces on it. The MIDI editing features on Logic is unparalleled and I easily think it takes the prize home. Next on the line is Pro Tools. Personally, I struggled with Pro Tools in my initial years a lot. I find the software a very heavy software on your system and it kind of weighs down on the resources. It's very intense, and not just that, it requires a lot of settings to set before you get a session ready to roll and start recording your music. Now, ever since they started updating their software, since 2019 they offered a subscription plan which allows you to be on the latest version at all times. They really nailed all the features and fixed all the issues. Now it stands easily alongside all the main DAWs in the market. Pro Tools has always been the industry standard globally. All big studios use Pro Tools as their main DAW. But over the years, people have gravitated towards using other softwares like Logic Pro X or Ableton Live or even Cubase for that matter, because certain features in it appeals musicians a lot more and helps them even in their writing stages. Pro Tools exactly isn't the strongest in that area. Now let's look at some of the great positive side of things on Pro Tools. The editing features that it offers is amazing. In fact, many people I have spoken to have said they prefer Pro Tools mainly because of its audio editing features. In fact, many people have multiple DAWs in their workflow and eventually condense or consolidate all those tracks into one Pro Tools session before they start mixing their music. The shortcuts and key commands on Pro Tools are very easy to learn, and that makes your editing workflow amazingly quick. The main reason why I use Pro Tools in my studio is because of their exclusive Beat Detective feature. I think it's the coolest thing out there, and there is no other app which does what a Beat Detective does so well. It lets me take multi-track audio files such as a drum performance and allows me to chop the tracks, snap them in place, crossfade them all with just a few clicks. Hey guys, so this is a drum recording that I did at my studio, and I would like to show you how I use Beat Detective to tighten a drum performance. But before we do that, I would like to just play the drum track itself, the raw unedited tracks, just to give you an idea of how it sounds and what we can achieve with Beat Detective. Now, it's not a terrible performance at all, but if you're going to be using virtual synthesizers, especially with sequenced parts, sometimes you need to make certain tweaks to your drum track so that it locks to the grid and it sounds really tight and good alongside the synthesizer parts. Now, as I said, even if you get a really good drummer, you still need to make some tweaks quite often, and they could look like this. So let's open Beat Detective and wow, okay, let's capture selection. Make sure that the bar values that is showing here is exactly the bars that you have selected. And let's analyze the file again. And once you analyze it, you can zoom in a bit if you'd like. Make sure that all the transients here are selected. You see the purple lines? You need to make sure that all the transients are pretty much through. So if any of them are missing, you could even add them manually. I've also made sure the drum fills has come through as well. So we're going to separate it. We're going to go to clip conform, it notes, conform this. You see it moved the things to place and it's created these gaps. Now we're going to smoothen those like that. So it took a couple of clicks and we're good to go. Now let's hear the same section and see how it sounds like. That sounds really good and tight. So this is how I use Beat Detective. I take about 8 to 10 bars at a time and go through each section of the song, and in no time I have a great sounding drum performance in my session. Now, I'm not advocating bad musicianship. All I'm saying is, even if you get the best drummer or the best musician out there, you still need to make some tweaks. Even the best sounding albums over there that we have binged on have had editing stuff done on it on each and every track sometimes. In fact, you'd be surprised to know when DVDs was a thing and all the amazing concerts that we sat and binged on in our homes had vocal tracks completely re-recorded and edited in a studio. Do you think that's cheating? But if you ask me, it's not, because honestly, what matters is not how you got the sound, but it's all about what you're hearing coming through your speakers, because as an audience, that's the first thing that matters to you. And if you want to stand the test of time and match today's standards of music production, then you've got to do whatever it takes. Pro Tools, in my opinion, is a perfect engineer's tool because it lets you route audio manually. Unlike a Logic Pro X, every time you open a software instrument track, it has its own effects sections that is being routed through a bus. Now, especially if you prefer manual control, this can be a frustrating experience going through the mixer section and deleting these tracks every session. In fact, I highly encourage all of you to learn the manual routing way because it lets you understand audio signal flow. Many times, if you walk into a big studio where they have outboard gear, it's going to leave you really confused if you don't understand signal flow. Or worse come worse situation, you're sitting in your home studio and producing a track and you need to troubleshoot something, you have no clue how audio is being routed within your own session. The third DAW of my choice is Ableton Live. Now, Ableton Live is a powerhouse when it comes to the features that it offers and the kinds of things that it can do. No other app or software in the market can do what Ableton Live does. Especially if you are into live performances and you need to trigger samples and loops during a concert, then Ableton Live is your best friend. Or if you're in a church setup and you have weekly worship sessions every Sunday, then Ableton Live is a perfect tool to not just control audio, but you can also control the slides with lyrics running on it and also the in-house lighting system, which can totally be routed within Ableton Live, and you can control the colors and the timing for each section of the song. Nothing does all of it so well the way Ableton Live does. Think of it this way, it's almost like an open source app. It basically lets you take any parameter within Ableton Live and assign it to either the QWERTY keys on your keyboard or an external MIDI controller, the faders or the knobs on it, and you can control all those things right using those tools. Think of it this way, it's like an open source app. Now, Ableton Live lets you control most of the parameters either by assigning it to your QWERTY keyboard or to an external MIDI controller with knobs and faders on it. You can assign these features to that and control them externally in a wonderful way. It comes with a lot of virtual instruments and samples too. Now, the cool thing about using samples within Ableton Live is you can drag a sample onto your session even if it's on a different tempo, and Ableton Live uses the warp feature to fit that onto the grid in your song. Here is an Ableton session where I've loaded an audio clip, which as you can see here is at 90 beats per minute, and our session is at 90 beats per minute too. Let's play this track and give it a listen. Now suppose if I want to add another track or a clip along with this, which is exactly out of sync. Let's drag down a little bit and such. Okay, let's take this congas track, which is at 128 beats per minute. Let's give this a play and see how it sounds like. As you see, it's at 128 beats per minute. But if I drag this and place it on another region or another track here, and let's play this together now and see what happens. You see how it starts snapping in place? But imagine if I disable the warp function here and see what happens now. It doesn't fit in time. So the warp feature brings an external sample which is not exactly in time with your project, warps the file and lets it sit on time. Ableton Live uses two different views, the session view and the arrangement view. In the session view, you'll find clips which are stacked vertically and you can trigger them during a live performance or even during your writing or jamming stages. The arrangement window looks more traditional, similar to how a lot of other softwares are. You can record your music using the arrangement window, or you can still use it during a live performance and trigger different tracks using markers and assigning them to either the QWERTY keyboard or again external MIDI controllers. You'll find a lot of electronic musicians and worship bands using Ableton Live in their performances. Especially if you see a drummer sitting with a laptop next to him, most probably he or she is controlling Ableton Live. The only thing with Ableton Live is the samples and stuff that it comes with leans more towards the electronic side of things. So if you are an acoustic singer-songwriter and you're looking for instruments which sound more acoustic, then Ableton may not be the best choice for you. I use Ableton mainly for live performances to trigger samples and clips. I spent some time learning Ableton Live and I'm glad I did it because the stuff that it does is so cool. In fact, I would say switching DAWs can often be a cool thing because it lets you experiment with samples and libraries of virtual instruments in a different DAW and often breaks the chain of working on your go-to techniques and your go-to ways in your songwriting stages. If you looked at the Ableton Push, which lets you control the software so well, you see it's not very traditional in its looks at all. It doesn't have white or black keys like your normal MIDI keyboard. They have velocity sensitive pads and the way you perform chords and melodies on it are very, very different, which means you may come up with something that's not your usual go-to lick. Now, I have never used Reaper or Studio One, so unfortunately I'm unable to comment on it and mention features that makes it stand out. So, which one is right for you? Based on all the things I've shared till now, I hope it sheds some light and gives you clarity in choosing the right DAW which fits your workflow. Now, if you're an acoustic singer-songwriter and you're looking for a software to complement and help you during your songwriting stages, then Logic Pro X would be the choice that I would recommend. Now, if you're an electronic composer and you want to make electronic music and take it to a live performance, then Ableton Live all the way. Now, if you're an audio engineer and you want to have bands or artists come and record in your studio, then Pro Tools would be my recommended choice. I haven't used Cubase in a very long time. I've used the earlier versions, but I've seen the updated version being used on the internet by many musicians. I'm personally super impressed by Misha Mansoor's video where he shows you how to program drums using their virtual Get Good Drums plugin. And if you see how he uses the piano roll window and quickly clicks on it and writes MIDI drum parts, it's phenomenal and super inspiring. As I said earlier, apart from some of these key features which makes each of these DAWs stand out and be on its own, most DAWs will allow you to do all the basic things, that's recording your music, editing it, mixing it and mastering it. So honestly speaking, if you're looking or worried about the sound quality of a DAW, trust me, DAWs do not influence the quality of your sound. It's the external equipment that you use, being the sound interface or the audio interface or a sound card, whatever you like to call it, the preamps on it or the converters on it, that's what influences your sound. So mainly what I would be focusing on while buying a DAW is mostly what workflow do I have and which DAW supports my kind of workflow, and not really about sound quality. If that was confusing, you can just be like me. You can use multiple DAWs in your studio and choose the best features out of each of these, which helps you, and eventually take all the tracks, consolidate them, place them within one session before you start mixing it. I hope you're not leaving this video more confused than you were before. So if you like this video, please leave your comments below and share your thoughts with me. I would be very happy to know what you have to say about this topic, and I'd also like to discuss and take this in the comments section. Also, give it a thumbs up if you like this video and subscribe and hit the bell so that you know or you're notified every time there's a new video up on this channel. This is a brand new channel and I hope to be putting more such useful content and information for you people to help your musical journey. So please show some love and share these videos with your friends and have them visit the channel too. Have a great week. My name is Varun from the Red Music Box, and I'll see you in another video, and remember to create, play and record.